Adrian Vale's sleeve tore 6 minutes before he was supposed to walk on stage. It happened as he stepped out of the black car in front of the conference hall, one hand adjusting his cuff, the other reaching for the speech folder his assistant held against her chest. A thin sound split through the morning noise. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just sharp enough to make him stop. The navy fabric had opened along the seam near his right elbow. Across the street, cameras were already pointed toward the entrance. Inside the hall, 500 people waited to hear him speak about leadership with humanity. Adrian lowered his arm. "Find someone," he said. His assistant, Claire, looked down at her phone and began searching. The nearest luxury menswear store was 20 minutes away. The event began in 8. The only open tailor nearby was 2 streets over, squeezed between a watch repair booth and a closed bakery. Adrian stared at the name on the map. Elias Tailoring. He had built companies, dismissed executives, bought buildings, and crossed cities without waiting for anyone. But that morning, with one torn sleeve and cameras at his back, he followed his assistant into a narrow side street where delivery trucks rattled over cracked pavement. The shop bell rang when he entered. Inside, the air smelled of steam, wool, and old wood. Rolls of fabric leaned against one wall. A brass lamp glowed over a sewing machine. Behind the counter stood an older man with silver hair, careful eyes, and a measuring tape resting around his neck. Elias Rahman looked up from a grey coat he had been hemming. Claire stepped forward. "We need an emergency repair. He has a keynote in a few minutes." Adrian removed his jacket before the tailor answered. "I'll pay whatever it costs. Just make it fast." Elias glanced at the torn sleeve, then at Adrian's face. His expression did not change. "Put it on the table," he said. Adrian looked at his watch. "I said it's urgent." "And I heard you," Elias replied. Rushing a stitch is how seams tear twice. The answer irritated Adrian more than it should have. He was used to people moving faster when they heard his name. He was used to doors opening, voices softening, hands reaching for his coat before he asked. But Elias only adjusted the lamp and turned the jacket inside out. Adrian stood near the counter in his white dress shirt, arms crossed, watching the old man inspect the damage as if the keynote, the cameras, and the waiting applause belonged to another world. Then Elias paused. His fingers had reached the inside lining, where the tailor's label had been sewn beside a small embroidered name. Adrian Vale. For a moment, the needle did not move. Adrian noticed the pause. "Problem?" Elias shook his head. "No problem with the fabric." He reached for dark thread from a wooden drawer. As he did, Adrian's eyes moved around the small shop. On the wall were framed photographs of men and women standing in carefully fitted suits. Some were wedding portraits. Some were graduation pictures. One showed a young man in a charcoal suit beside Elias, both standing stiffly, both trying not to smile too much. Near the sewing machine, partly hidden under a folded receipt, lay a printed email. Adrian saw only a few words. "Valebridge Capital regrets to inform you." Elias noticed where he was looking and placed the torn sleeve over the paper. The room grew quieter. 3 months earlier, Elias's son, Sami, had worn a suit made by his father to an interview at Valebridge Capital. It was not expensive fabric. Elias had bought it on discount from a supplier who was closing his warehouse. But he had measured every seam twice, pressed the lapels until they held clean lines, and stitched a small blue thread inside the cuff because Sami said it reminded him of home. Sami had stood in front of the mirror that morning, nervous and proud. "Do I look like I belong there?" he had asked. Elias had adjusted his collar. "Stand straight, and you will." Sami returned before lunch. He did not slam the door. He did not cry. He simply hung the suit on the back of a chair and sat at the kitchen table without removing his shoes. Later, Elias learned what had happened. During the interview, Adrian had looked at Sami's handmade suit and smiled in front of 2 managers. "We're looking for people who understand the room they're entering," he had said. Confidence includes presentation. The managers had laughed softly. Sami had answered the next questions badly. 2 days later, the rejection email came. After that, the suit stayed in the closet. Adrian did not remember the interview at first. To him, there had been hundreds of candidates, hundreds of rooms, hundreds of small comments dropped and forgotten. But as Elias guided the torn sleeve under the machine, the old man's silence began to press against him. Claire checked the time. "Mr. Vale, we have 4 minutes." Elias continued sewing. Adrian stepped closer. "You know who I am." "Yes," Elias said. "You should have said something." "I am fixing your sleeve." "That's not what I mean." Elias lifted the fabric, checked the seam, and cut a loose thread with tiny silver scissors. His hands were steady. The kind of steady that came from years of making small things hold. "My son interviewed at your company," he said. Adrian's face tightened. There it was. Not an accusation. Not anger. Just a fact placed carefully on the table, like a garment that needed repair. Adrian looked again at the email near the machine. Then at the photograph on the wall. The young man beside Elias. The charcoal suit. "I interview many people," Adrian said. Elias nodded. "That is why you forgot him." The sentence landed harder than if Elias had raised his voice. Outside, a truck reversed with a dull beeping sound. Somewhere in the event hall, a microphone was probably being tested. Adrian imagined the crowd, the stage lights, the large screen behind the podium with his name on it. Leadership with humanity. He looked away. Elias turned the sleeve right side out. The repair was almost invisible. He stopped applying after that day, Elias said. Not because he was rejected. Rejection is part of life. He stopped because he believed you saw something in him that I had missed. Adrian swallowed. The old tailor pressed the sleeve flat with a burst of steam. The fabric darkened for a second, then dried smooth. "I don't remember exactly what I said," Adrian murmured. Elias folded the jacket over his arm. People with power rarely remember the small cuts. They are not the ones who bleed. Claire's phone buzzed again. "They're calling you," she said. Adrian reached into his leather folio and pulled out a cream envelope. He counted quickly, far more than the repair was worth, then placed it beside the sewing machine. "For the work," he said. Elias looked at the envelope but did not touch it. Adrian pushed it closer. "Please." The word sounded unfamiliar in his own mouth. Elias picked up the jacket and held it open for him. Adrian slipped one arm through, then the other. The sleeve sat perfectly. No pull. No wrinkle. No sign of the tear. For a man who made a living repairing appearances, Elias had repaired it honestly. Adrian reached again for the envelope. Elias placed 2 fingers on it and slid it back across the table. "No," he said. Adrian frowned. "It's not charity." "I know." "Then why?" Elias looked at the repaired sleeve, then at Adrian. "Because the suit was the smallest thing torn today." Adrian said nothing. Elias stepped back. "Go give your speech." The shop bell rang as Adrian and Claire left. The side street was brighter now. Cameras turned as Adrian crossed toward the conference hall in the repaired jacket, the fabric lying clean over his shoulder as if nothing had happened. But something had. On stage, Adrian stood behind the podium and looked at the first line of his prepared speech. It spoke of vision, empathy, culture, and the future of leadership. Words polished by a team, tested for applause, emptied of risk. He looked down at his sleeve. Then he closed the folder. "I was reminded this morning," he began, "that presentation can hide damage. It can also cause it." The room quieted. He did not name Elias. He did not tell the whole story. He did not turn shame into performance. But he changed the speech enough that the people closest to the stage noticed his hands were not as still as usual. He spoke about how easily leaders confuse confidence with expensive signals. He admitted that a room can reject a person before hearing what they know. He said interviews should measure ability, not polish. In the tailor shop, Elias did not watch the speech. He returned to the grey coat beneath the brass lamp. The envelope remained on the counter, unopened, exactly where Adrian had left it after Elias slid it back. 3 days later, Sami found a letter in the mailbox. It was not a job offer. Elias was glad it was not. Charity would have insulted him in a different way. It was an invitation for a second interview, handwritten beneath the printed message. Sami, I judged the suit before I heard the man. If you are willing, I would like to begin again. Sami read it twice. Elias stood by the doorway, wiping thread from his fingers. He did not tell his son what to do. He had spent his life making clothes fit other people. He knew a decision had to fit the person wearing it. Sami folded the letter and placed it inside the inner pocket of the charcoal suit. The next morning, he took the suit from the closet. Elias adjusted the same collar he had adjusted months earlier. This time, Sami did not ask if he looked like he belonged there. He already stood as if he did. Before leaving, Sami looked at the small blue thread inside the cuff and smiled. At the shop, Elias opened the drawer beside the sewing machine. The cream envelope still lay inside, untouched. He placed the rejection email beneath it, then closed the drawer gently. Some repairs are paid for in money. Others begin when a man finally sees the person standing in front of him.